Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Let's Talk About DAFs. If you're here to talk about donor advised funds and how we can be more resilient in the valley of, you're in the right place. I'm Laura Wondolowski, and I'm with the Peace Development Fund. So glad that so many people are part of this effort and are joining us today. Just want to mention that we are going to be recording this meeting, so I know lots of people register and then want to get the recording later. There are a whole bunch of organizations that have come together to make this happen, and we're gonna, including the Amherst Survival Center, Cancer Connection, the Center for Ecotechnology, CISA, the Food Bank of Western Mass, Grove Food Northampton, the Hilltown Land Trust, the Hitchcock Center for the Environment, the Kestrel Land Trust, the Northampton Survival Center, Nuestras Raíces, Stone Soup Cafe, and the Peace Development Fund. We want to respect your anonymity in the space, which is why we set this up as a webinar. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A, and that way you can be anonymous. And we'll have different points throughout our program today where you can put in your questions. I'm also joined by Julia Reisman, who is going to be my co-MC for this meeting today. And she's going to give us a little bit of just quick background of how did this come together? What is this whole thing, and what is this group? So Julia.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Just wait so you can see me. My name is Julia Reisman. I'm a development director at CET, the Center for Ecotechnology. This spring, just as the federal government was beginning to pull funding quickly away from environmental organizations and to put the brakes on climate solutions, a group of development directors from around the region had already planned to have a potluck to get together. We were informally share resources and get to know each other better. That potluck was so sad. We came in shaken, afraid, disoriented. We went around the table to find out how much money had been pulled overnight. It was close to $3 million from just our small circle of development directors. And there was this moment of conversation about how are we going to cope? What are our donors seeing and how are they responding? How can anyone respond to such a huge amount of funding yanked away from our community? And it was very interesting because as we went around the table to talk about, is it funding cuts? Is it staff reduction? Is it programs, that we're going to take offline? There was a shift in our thinking for just a moment of like, this isn't the vision we have for resiliency for the places that we love. And as climate organizations, or at least I should say for me personally, my vision for a resilient community is one that thrives on all levels. It's one that takes into account the climate crisis, ensures that we have food systems that can feed people, ensures there's housing, that people are thriving, our natural environment is thriving. And that's all of our nonprofit organizations. It's not one or the other. They're the solutions for a resilient future is actually an ecosystem of solutions. And we started to think about what might it look like if we were to pull together instead of being pulled apart from this moment in history, pull together, support one another. And it became clear that by communicating information quickly with each other to understand the scale of this artificially created crisis, we could be stronger together. By communicating, by convening and meeting potluck or on Zoom in order to understand how to respond, and then collaborating. As small nonprofit organizations, we cannot pull together a fundraising campaign as effectively as if we pulled together. And that what sort of over many months of talking and collaborating and so forth came up with this vision of sharing today's webinar. So that's a bit of the history of where we've come from and the vision for a resilient local community and what it feels like to be here in this webinar right now, the fruits of our efforts to collaborate with each other. So Laura, I turn it back to you.
Thank you. Great. So our goals for doing this webinar together is one, to just understand the need in this current moment, which Julia mentioned, just, a snapshot of the millions of dollars that have been lost by organizations. We want to explore the opportunity to innovate and use half my DAF model and how that might work here in Western Mass. And we want to get feedback and decide together how this might look, how this might work. So that's our bigger goals. Next slide is our agenda. So pretty standard. We got a little bit of the background already from Julia. We are really excited to have someone from the National Half My DAF campaign, Elizabeth Wayne, and I'll introduce her in a minute. We'll talk about our vision here for the Valley. We have Al Griggs with us to give us a little perspective as a donor and what he's been thinking about. And then lastly, Billy Spitzer from the Hitchcock Center will talk about next steps and get feedback, by encouraging folks to put things in the Q&A as we go along. So before we introduce our speaker, we have a poll question for you all to answer. So I hope you're all seeing the poll now, and we just want to get a sense of who's in the room. And I just want to thank Kate, who is working behind the scenes from CISA, doing all the polls and the slides and all of that. So this is definitely a joint effort. So looks like we're shifting around. All right, we're at 80% participation. There's just a few more to go. All right, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds to figure out who you are with us today. All right, Kate, if we end the poll, will it then be shown to folks? Great. So we've got most folks on the call, 62% are nonprofit staff or leaders. We have about a quarter of you are individual donors. Fantastic. Thank you for being here. We also have some foundations and institutional funders, 15%, financial advisors, business owners and leaders, and community activists. So a really good cross-section of our community. So thank you for being here. And our second question, so we want to understand as we go into our conversation about donor advised funds to see how familiar you all are with donor advised funds. So that's who is in the room. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Laura, I think that might have been all questions that got released at once, which I did not realize that they would all release at once.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So sorry about that, folks. I think my mistake that we rushed you a little bit, but I'll share the results here. I think you can see.
All right.
See the second, third, fourth.
Perfect. Okay. So, second question was, how familiar are you with donor advised funds, also known as DAFs? And it looks like about 72% of you know what they are, but don't know how to make the best of them. 6% are unfamiliar, and 20% have DAFs and feel confident using their DAF. I know I was talking to Al yesterday, and we just had a conversation about this. And I see that within our donor advised fund holders at the Peace Development Fund. We have a range of people who are using it really actively, some who are letting it sit, some who are spending down every year and replenishing. So there's definitely a lot of different ways to use those funds. And it looks like about 20% of you have a donor advised fund and about 80% do not. And then the last question was about how concerned are you about how local nonprofits are being impacted. So we have a generous group here, close to 90% of you are very concerned. I share that with you as well, sitting up at night worrying about what's happening in the world. So 11% moderately concerned. So you're in the right room. This is why we're doing this, because there is a great need. And we collectively know that next year funding environment is going to be even worse. There's some tax changes that is going to disadvantage larger donors, as well as federal cuts continue, and that's impacts the state budget in a way that it's not yet. So we've been a little bit insulated. Great. So I'm going to stop the poll and move on to our conversation about the Half My DAF campaign and some of the amazing work that started in California. So we have with us, and if you want to put the slide up, Elizabeth Wayne. Elizabeth Wayne is the administrative supporter for Half My DAF campaign, which has helped move more than $80 billion out of donor advised funds. She works as a nonprofit administrative support and mental health community intervention person, passionate about nonprofit research, program evaluation. And I was excited to see she's in Philadelphia, even though working in California. So she's on the East Coast with us all. Thank you, Elizabeth, for spending your time with us and sharing your wisdom. And congratulations on a huge amount of matching funds that just were announced this weekend. So take it away. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura, for having me and for the opportunity to talk more about, what it is that I'm doing what we are doing at Half My DAF. I'm excited to speak to individuals that don't know what DAFs are. And for those that do have DAFs, this is a great opportunity for you to take advantage and get some matching funds from your DAF. And get to the slide. Great. So you can go to the next slide. And you can keep moving from here. Next slide. Okay, so first I'm just going to start off with what is a DAF. So you can advance from here. Sorry, I think it skipped a slide. Oh, okay. I just think there was one missing. So we can stop at the slide that just says what is a DAF, and I can just speak from there. Okay, great. So a DAF is or a donor advised fund. So it's often thought of as a charitable checking account. So a DAF holder can contribute money, they contribute stocks or other assets into an account, and then they receive a tax break up front. So there we go. Lovely. So as assets are contributed to a donor advised fund, they're invested, and then it's great because the money increases over time. The money that's put into a DAF is irrevocable, so it cannot be returned to the holder. The intention is that that money is going out to the nonprofits. The advantage of a DAF is that it's great because the money can grow over time, and it allows someone to sustain their giving over their lifetime, you know, maybe despite changes in income. It also allows someone to be more strategic and mindful about their giving throughout the year. Now, so DAFs, you know, they sound like very promising tools for individuals to engage in strategic giving, but there's a large problem that's typically associated with DAFs. So there's currently no payout requirement for a donor advised fund. So it means that the money that's in a donor advised fund, it can just sit there forever. So since there is no federal or state minimum for a DAF payout, currently each DAF provider, as of right now, they've set up their own specific rules regarding account activity and minimum grant amounts. So this leads to the main problem. You know, without a minimum payout, there's little to no external cues for DAF holders to spend down their DAF. And then this creates a large lack of flow of money from DAFs to nonprofits. And then we can go to the slide, why aren't DAF holders granting more? I'm gonna have to reverse. Lovely, thank you. So since there's no minimum payout requirement motivating a DAF holder to spend down a certain amount of their DAF, the DAF holders are making money off of the management or administration fees associated with the DAFs. So the DAF sponsors also don't have a cue to nudge their DAF holders to be putting that money to work. So overall, just in general, the DAF system is set up. It's to where it's great at incentivizing individuals to put money into their DAF, but it's not great at getting people to move money out to the nonprofits that really need it the most. So there's also some other issues that DAF holders are experiencing that have prevented them from putting their DAF dollars to work. So people get really busy with life, you know, philanthropy is not always on the top of someone's mind. There can be a big sense of overwhelm when it comes to granting out larger amounts of money. People really, you know, want to do philanthropy correctly. They want to give to reliable nonprofits, and they also want to be really efficient in their giving. There are some misconceptions that a DAF is a part of someone's assets, but really they need to be seen and viewed as a vehicle for long-term giving. There's also, as I had mentioned before, there's no reminders. So it's really easy for someone to forget that they have a DAF. You know, typically someone's CFA will come to them and recommend, you know, this is a great year to open up a DAF to offset, you know, a tax event, and that account is opened. So the, you know, the financial team isn't necessarily reminding someone that they have a DAF, and then the DAF sponsor as well isn't reminding their client that, hey, you have a new account. There's also, you know, some relation management that comes with being a large donor. So people tend to, you know, shy away from giving out those large donations because they aren't sure what the expectations will be that come with that. You know, will I be expected to attend events? Will I have to be, you know, on someone's board? So people tend to remain anonymous and then kind of shy away from, you know, what does it mean for me to give a big grant? And then also as well, individuals can inherit donor advised funds, and they don't necessarily receive a lot of guidance on the best ways to use that DAF or understand, you know, how does my family member envision for me to be engaging with this donor advised fund. So where might your DAF donations be coming from? So as a nonprofit, you might be getting some checks from these different institutions. So there are 3 types of DAFs. So most of the money is being housed at larger national DAFs. So you might be getting checks from Fidelity, Vanguard, or Schwab. There are also community foundations that you can, that's another place you can house a DAF. And then there are also single purpose DAFs housed at religious organizations and universities. So while there are tons of places that you can house a DAF, a majority of them are held at the national DAFs. So if you're receiving a check from any of these institutions, it's more than likely because you have a donor with a donor advised fund. Sometimes a DAF holder will have their name on the guarantee letter or the check. And then also as well, they may remain anonymous. So you might just see, you know, the national DAF sponsor's name. So if you're seeing these checks, it's a great cue to start building relationships with your DAF holders and just get to know a little bit more about them and their relationship to their DAF, and seeing if you can be a part of, their philanthropic goals. So now I'd like to transition to talking a little bit more about, what is it that we're doing at Half My DAF to incentivize DAF holders to put their DAF dollars to work, because currently, right now, there is no incentive. So while, Jen and David Risher, so they're spearheading this campaign, they officially launched Half My DAF in 2020. But I like to think of like the prelude of the Half My DAF story starting at Worldreader, when David was the CEO at Worldreader. So the Worldreader is a nonprofit that's really focused on getting children reading around the world. While David was leading that organization, he noticed the common trend that, majority of all giving happens at the end of the year. And we know that the influx of funding right at the end of the year makes it very challenging for nonprofits to, plan ahead. So that was just a big roadblock that he had identified as we were going into the development of Half My DAF. So we can go ahead. So now fast forwarding to 2020, Jen and David launched Half My DAF. So they had this very heightened awareness of the fundraising challenges that David had recognized at Worldreader, combined with, at the time there was $170 billion in donor advised fund. Now there's almost $251 billion in donor advised funds. So with that knowledge, and combined with everything that was happening during the COVID-19 pandemic, they asked themselves, how can we get this money moving out of DAFs right now? As individuals, they were already contributing, large amounts to different charities, and they were increasing their giving, but they wanted to see if there's a way that we could get and motivate other people to also give alongside of them. So that's when they said, like, let's put up $1 million and use those towards matching funds, and we will match grants for those willing to spend down half of their donor advised fund. So they put together, their website, and then Half My DAF has just kind of been growing ever since. So now we can go to a little bit. So how does Half My DAF work? So Half My DAF, it operates in direct opposition of the current giving trend by providing an incentive for DAF holders kind of at the end of the second quarter and the third quarter, with a chance of getting your grants matched by Half My DAF. So overall, we're trying to encourage giving at times that are more beneficial for nonprofits in their end of the year planning. So for example, just thinking large scale about how Half My DAF works. So in 2020, they had $1.4 million to give away to DAF holders committed to spending down half of their DAF. For those that spent down half of their DAF, their grants were listed on our website and then randomly selected for a match during our 2 match days. So those days for the matches were on July 15th and September 30th. So in July, nonprofits were randomly selected, and a little over 600,000 was matched. And again, in September, nominated nonprofits were selected, and a little over 700,000 was matched. So it was wonderful to see at the end of 2020, by providing this incentive and giving people a chance at having their grants randomly selected for a match, Jen and David inspired the move of over $8.6 million out of DAFs in 2020. And every year it's just like grown since. So it's really exciting to see that develop. So for individual donors, so if you have a DAF and you want to get involved with Half My DAF, you just need to first commit to spending down half of your DAF by the final deadline, and just start issuing grants from your DAF. So as you issue grants, you'll send them to me. So we have a Google form that we fill out online, that our DAF holders will fill out online. And this is an opportunity for me to get more information about the nonprofit that's being nominated. I'll review your grant confirmation, I'll verify the amount, and then make sure that you're also issuing those grants before our deadline. So as you can see on the right side, that's just an example of what a grant confirmation might possibly look like from your DAF sponsor, and that's what we're looking for as you're filling out that Google form. It's also, I like to remind people, it's important to remember that it's great to give early, because in July, we have our first drawing, and if your grants are not selected in July, then you have the opportunity to be selected again in September or October. So if you get your grants in early, you'll have a increased likelihood of getting a match. So I like to remind people of that. And then here's an example of kind of what our website will look like. So after a nonprofit is nominated, I've reviewed your grant confirmation. The nonprofit's going to be listed on our website like this. So you'll see the nonprofit, the state, the amount that the donor had granted, and then we add a tag to categorize the issue area that the nonprofit is focused on resolving. So on match day, this is what, you know, Jenna and David are looking at. They're going to randomize this list, and then they'll just go down the list and randomly select nonprofits until they allocate all of the matching funds that they have available. So we match grants dollar for dollar, so up to $5,000. So and then there are also either 2 to 4 nonprofits are selected for a $25,000 match during each drawing. So for example, if someone has contributed $10,000 to Earth Justice, they're eligible for a $5,000 match. And then also something I just like to point out here too is that you can see Equal Justice Initiative has been nominated twice. So there's no limit on how many times a nonprofit can be nominated. So for nonprofits, the more donors you get to half their DAF, the more chances you have at being selected for a match. Yeah, go ahead. And then just thinking about our mission. So what is it, you know, that Half My DAF, why are we doing this and what are we hoping to change? So the overall goals are to, you know, inspire, lead, and motivate. We want to inspire donors to move money out of their DAFs now at a time when nonprofits really need it the most. We want DAF holders to really think about using their DAF earlier in the year as opposed to exclusively during the end of the year, just during giving season. We want to lead more conversations about issues around the lack of incentive of getting DAF dollars moving. And we just want to continue to be a part of conversations about mandating a DAF sponsor payout pledge. I have an image of Amalgamated Foundation there. Jen and David, you know, to demonstrate this commitment to changing the DAF landscape, they moved their donor advised fund to Amalgamated Foundation. Amalgamated Foundation, they're wonderful. They were the first to advocate for the 10% payout pledge, and they regularly achieve payout rates at 4 times the national average, which is like very impressive. And so at Half My DAF, we really encourage individuals that are considering to open a DAF to look at Amalgamated Foundation. And for those that already have a DAF, maybe consider moving your DAF to Amalgamated Foundation. And lastly, we want to motivate and just to educate nonprofits about donor advised funds and just to think about ways in which you can strengthen your relationship with your DAF holders. We ideally would like for nonprofits to see, you know, their DAF holders as an opportunity to convert someone into a long-term donor, to see that, you know, there's this person that has this donor advised fund that may have a lot of money that's already supporting you. How can you get them to think a little bit more strategically about how they can support you over the long term? And then if you just keep moving forward. And then these are just some highlights. So we had a record year for Half My DAF giving over the past year. So we granted there was over $25 million grants that were issued from DAFs through Half My DAF in 2025. And then next slide. And then it looks like we might have, so there was also, I don't know if this slide is included, but we also have granted, it's over 97 million from donor advised funds have been granted, there we go, through Half My DAF since 2020. So we've seen $97 million move. So it's been great to see that steadily increasing over the years. And then we can go to the October 10th match. And I'd just like to correct, that's 398 grants that were issued on October 10th. We had $1.1 million that were distributed. And these are just some of the, just more information about where some of those grants are going. So we had 270K going towards gender equity and issues, 148K going towards reproductive health issues. And then for education in underserved communities, we were able to get 270K moving towards education in underserved communities. And then as far as the general other, there's 445K that was moved to support organizations such as, there's a lot of environmental advocacy groups, a lot of individual nonprofits are supporting racial justice, democracy, and then food security, as well as another area where we do get a lot of nominations supporting those kind of nonprofits. And I think it's just, there's one more slide. Oh yeah, I had pulled some quotes just from different thank yous that our participants have passed along over the years. So can read those here. And it's just generally, I wanted to capture that people are really excited about Half My DAF, and it's been a great way to push people to be more proactive about their giving. People really love leveraging their money, and getting the matches is really exciting. People are waking up and seeing like that, their grants are matched, and also that several of their grants are matched. I also want to point out that Holly's quote there, it really highlights that we have a very diverse group of participants. So we've estimated that with Half My DAF, we have participants with DAFs as large as 2 million from DAFs with just like a few $100s in them. So really, we've got a broad range of participants. So it doesn't have to be individuals with huge DAFs that are getting involved here. And then the last quote there, it was really excited about getting a message from Ellen. She's a nonprofit leader, and as she looked a little bit closely at where her DAFs were coming from after hearing more about Half My DAF, she recognized that a third of their gifts were coming from donor advised funds. So it's great to see that more nonprofits are taking a closer look at where their money is coming from and really making deep connections with their donor advised fund holders.
Thank you for everyone who's
And
been
then
submitting questions in the Q&A. You can keep submitting them and we'll answer them by typing, and we'll, after Laura speaks a little bit more about the local initiative, if there are further questions, I will interject with them.
And thank you. I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you to, Amalgamated Foundation. They're working really hard right now to get the grants distributed for all the matches that we made in October. Thank you. There are tons of wonderful individuals that have contributed to the Half My DAF matching pool, and also to Brighton Jones. We're, partnering with them to further develop Half My DAF. And I just can't wait to, further support our donors in the process of, living a more rich and generous life. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. This was such a amazing effort, and to watch how it's grown from, what did you say, about 8.6 to 9 each year, going up by that much. It's really inspirational. So as Julia said, keep sending in your questions. We will answer some of them with the whole group, and some of them will just send you individual messages. But if we could go to the our vision slide, which is number 28, I think that would be great. Thank you. So as a organization that provides about 24 donor advised funds, a peace development fund, we've been aware of Half My DAF for several years now. We encourage our DAF holders to participate. We also encourage all of our donors, because many of them hold DAFs, to register so that their money can go further. So it's something that I've known about. And as our coalition started talking about how do we raise all boats, what is our joint next Valley Gives, for lack of a other model. This summer we I shared with them the Half My DAF story, and people really like the idea of how how do we encourage, because many DAF holders, as we have put this money aside and are sometimes overwhelmed with how to use it effectively. And this is money that you've already put away. So what a great way to help unleash some of those funds. We know that there are over 700 donor advised funds just at the Community Foundation of Western Massachusetts alone. And that doesn't account for all of the other donors who have money in Fidelity, Schwab, some of them at Peace Development Fund and other places. So what we're considering is setting up something similar to Half My DAF, but just for the 3 counties of the Pioneer Valley region. We want to unleash those funds in the valley, spark collaboration, and see if we can increase the amount that's going out. So our goal is to raise $250,000 in matching funds. On a later slide, you'll see we've set up a online portal where you can give to that. We're also talking to foundations, individual donors, and others to add to that matching fund. We would love to kick off this campaign on Giving Tuesday, which is December 2nd, 2025, because this is a time that a lot of organizations are already sending out information. So to make it easier for them, let's kick it off on Giving Tuesday. We are talking about doing 2 match raffles, similar to Half My DAF, but given the urgency of the current situation, we actually would love to do the Half My DAF campaign, or DAF Down, whatever we want to call it, for this region within 6 months because of the urgency for our organizations losing funding. So what you would do as a donor is register your qualifying DAF grants by February for the February match, or by May to get into that second group of raffles. Any DAF gift to a nonprofit in those counties will be eligible, with the exception of organizations that are doing anything related to hate. But we haven't figured out if it's Half My DAF, if it's, increase your spending by 10%. That's why we're here today. We want to get your feedback. What feels right? This is our first time trying this. We want to keep building it every year. So that's what our vision is. Julia, before I bring on Al, are there any other kind of our questions for you today are, after hearing the vision for this campaign, are you excited to proceed? Does this get you at the edge of your chair? And then what questions, so just think about this, you can put them in the Q&A. What questions do you think we need to answer or think about before we would proceed? What would make it stronger? So Julia, anything in the Q&A that you want to answer right now?
So to add to the pool of the $250,000, does that have to come from a DAFT, or can it come as gift of stock? The
Great
pool
question.
fund.
And we will take any kind of gift. This is going to be run through the Peace Development Fund, and we can take gifts of stock. You can't take a DAF gift to a DAF. So that would be the only thing, but we can figure that out. So both individual donors, stock gifts, etc., will be able to take.
This is a question about DAFs. So DAFs only benefit donors who use itemized expenses. That's sort of a tax question. Maybe Elizabeth can answer it, or go talk to your CPA.
So I'm still learning, expanding my knowledge around the tax kind of advantages that are associated with DAF. So I wouldn't necessarily be the best person to answer that question, but like you mentioned, Julia, your CPA, CFA might be a good person to go to answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mainly people who are itemizing and need to lower their income for a given year. It's why people often will put a large amount in a year to their donor advised fund that year. But yeah, we're not tax professionals, so please ask.
So, Laura, here's a question. Any kind of donation given to this region would be eligible for this pool of matching funds, but would it also include Berkshire County or probably not? Or we don't know yet?
We don't know yet. I mean, the original organizing groups were all in the 3 counties of Western Mass and not the Berkshires. So you all can put in the Q&A. Should we include our friends in the Berkshires? Should we unleash the Berkshire Taconic Foundation and all of their donor advised funds?
So I think we can turn it over to Al.
Fantastic. So I'm excited to have Al Griggs join us, and he's been talking to to our coalition since the summer. We've been talking to a few donors to see what they think, and just want to get his perspective on what did he think when we first started talking to him about this, and what are his thoughts as a donor. So Al, thank you so much, and thank you for your generosity to our region.
Thank you, Laura. When I first heard about this idea, what attracted me to it was the opportunity for various organizations to work collaboratively. I think sometimes we misunderstand that different nonprofits are working competitively. I don't think that's true at all. This unique situation we're facing now with this drastic cuts to budgets, which in just sort of my very unofficial survey is that it's about a third of many organizations' budgets that have been cut. It's a very, very significant amount. And so I thought initially just getting everybody who is suffering from this craziness to speak together and try to find a way to work together would be an advantage to all, not just the organizations, but the people who are served by those organizations. So that was my initial interest. Hearing about the half my DAF, frankly, it was new to me, and it still is new to me. But my impression is that there's no other way that I know of that's been tried to specifically address people who have donor advised funds, that the importance of them in aggregate is enormous. And during this time of extreme need, it's just a unified message that can go out to people who have funds, that there's an opportunity for them to use them. And honestly, in my mind, half my GAF is probably a little bit more than certainly more than I would be willing to do. But I think hearing the message just will drive home to me the opportunity that we have during these times to really make a difference and be helpful. I'm hoping the campaign is successful, and I'm prepared to support it, and hope that other people will feel the same way. But I think that's a little bit that's a little bit of the frosting on the cake. Whether you get to utilize the we hope $250,000 or not, I think the bigger message is the impact that we all can have individually by pooling our DAFs, if you will, toward this urgent need. So honestly, Laura, and I think that's about what I have to say, except I'd love people to join me in supporting this effort.
Thank you so much, Al. Super appreciative of your counsel, your leadership in this region.
So I think I'm next. This is Billy. So let's see if we can go to slide 28 just for a minute. So yeah, and I guess you can get me up on the video. So basically, let's just go back a slide or two. Yeah, so we're going to ask you in a second to answer a poll question about kind of what do you think now that you've heard about Half My DAF, the national effort, and we've described a little bit about what a local effort would be like. So we're going to do a poll, and then we'll give you an opportunity to put some more questions to us. Here is the poll. So let us know what you think. And I think Laura or Kate, you'll see what percent is completed, I'm thinking.
Almost there, Billy.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right, we're going to give just a few more seconds and then we're going to close it.
Great.
The last few clicks.
Okay, all right. So it looks like the kind of plurality, almost 50% are supportive but still have questions. We have about a third of folks that are really excited and supportive. That's awesome. 7% are saying have questions, not sure what they think. 9% are saying I have questions that I need answers before I could be supportive, and just 2% are saying no. So that's awesome. That's really helpful feedback for us. We were hoping to get positive feedback. We're excited. There are lots of questions, please keep sending us your questions in the Q&A. And let's just flip to the last slide for a second here. You know, we're going to be kind of digesting the feedback from this webinar and all the questions. And here are some of the things that we're hoping you all can do in parallel to that. You know, first, if you're willing to help us by adding to the pool of matching funds that we're hoping to raise, the 250,000 we're hoping to raise in matching funds, that would be awesome. We already have some commitments and a fair amount of interest, but we're looking for more. Second is we hope that you will give generously on Giving Tuesday and beyond through the end of the year and beyond that in whatever way works for you. Third, we'd love you to spread the word about what we're doing, about DAFs, but also about this initiative to incentivize gap giving to your friends, financial advisors, colleagues. One thing that is a great thing you can do on Giving Tuesday is host a potluck or event to support work toward a resilient valley and support nonprofits in the valley, and post about it. If you have a DAF or create a DAF, we hope you will increase your pledge amounts and the grants that you're giving. And then we're also open to other ideas. You know, in addition to questions, please give us ideas. And we're really excited that we've had such great participation today. Now we were happy to stay on the call and answer questions, we'll be sending out a recording of this afterwards, I believe. And yeah, we'll go to Q&A for now.
Billy, thank you. If anyone needs to ring off, please do. Otherwise, we're going to stay on and we're going to take the questions that you've put in the Q&A. And if you would also, besides your questions, put in your thoughts on what we could do to help make this campaign clearer, more easy to understand. You're our first audience to explain this campaign to, and we imagine we have to get better at answering your questions to make it clear before it becomes a public campaign. But how exciting to have this moment to create a pool. Maybe it'll be $250,000. I sure hope it will be. If it's smaller or larger, based on your poll, we will proceed with a campaign to raise visibility about the opportunity to give generously in this moment. So Billy, why don't you and I tag team on the questions that are in the Q&A and put them to our speakers? My first one I'm going to read out loud is adding to the pool of funds a tax-deductible gift. Laura, do you want to take that one?
It is, because it's going to through a nonprofit 501c3, so everybody will get acknowledgement letters and all of that.
So this QR code you see on the slide, if you hold your phone up to it and like in camera mode and use that QR code, it will take you to the website that Laura and this coalition have put together. That's where you can start contributing or pledge to contribute to the pool. Or how would somebody let us know that they would like to be a contributor? Laura, do you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and as follow-up, because the funds are going to be held at the Peace Development Fund, you can go to our website, get our address. We're PO Box 1280, Amherst, Massachusetts 01004. I can put that in the chat. And if you want to send a check to us and just in the memo put Resilient Valley, then we fiscally sponsor like 50 different things. So we're used to doing this all the time, making sure that the right money gets into the right accounts. So you can give that way. On our website, there's information about our stock, how to give stocks. That's another place if you just put down what the purpose is for, or you can just call me at 413-256-8306.
And donations made and registered for this match could go to what? Only these organizations listed on the slide, or to any, like what would be eligible to be matched in this campaign?
Great. Great question, Julie. Any organization that as long as you've pledged to spend more with your DAF, and we don't know what percentage that is yet, so we want your feedback on that. You can put up into our form, which will be much like the Half My DAF form, any grants that you made out through your donor advised fund to a organization in, right now we're saying the 3 counties, but it might be the 4. And any of those organizations would be eligible for the match raffle.
And those organizations would need to be nonprofits, is that correct?
That's right, or if they're fiscally sponsored by somebody. So it doesn't have to be one of these core organizing organizations. It can be any organization throughout this region.
Billy, do you have a question you want to read?
Yeah, so a couple of good points are about yeah, maybe half is too much. So maybe we should think about that, and also that some folks saying that they may already be kind of tapped out for right now in terms of giving. So that's something that we definitely understand. We don't think of this as a one-time campaign, so we expect to be doing this probably for several years, we think, given the situation and given the need. One question came up about, how far are we towards the 250,000 pool, and do all of the matching funds need to be raised by Giving Tuesday? So Laura, maybe you want to tackle that one.
Sure. We have commitments, and I'm not able to share yet where we're at, because it's still working through it. But we don't need to raise all of the matching funds by Giving Tuesday. We're looking at getting close by February 2nd, which is our first raffle.
Let's see, a question came up about Half My Daff about how the selection happens. It says randomly selected, and how does that work? And would we use something similar? So I don't know if Elizabeth, Laura, you want to answer that question?
Yeah, and I think I don't know if it's helpful to go back to that slide with the example, but as we are receiving grants and nominations, we're putting it all in a spreadsheet, and that's what you see on our website when you look at 2025 or all of the subsequent years. So that list, once we have all our nominations that have come in, we just randomize that list and we'll go down the line and just select nonprofits.
Elizabeth, there was a question earlier. Is there evidence that this campaign is actually inspiring increased philanthropic giving from DAFs that have gone dormant? We know that that's the intent of this awareness campaign, but do you have evidence that it's actually working?
Just through word of mouth, we have had donors that have, talked to us and said, "Oh, I forgot I had a donor advised fund," or "I hadn't used it in years." But we don't necessarily have any statistics that would speak to the percentage of donors that hadn't been using their DAF that are engaged in Half My Daff. But that would be a great thing for us to, be looking into and see if that's a question we could pull for individuals that have participated in the past.
I'll say that our coalition of nonprofits, when we got together and talked to each other, one of the things is whether a donor has a DAF or not is invisible to us. How we know that there are over 500 DAFs at the Community Foundation, but that information is anonymous, put it that way. And so the only way to reach DAF donors is by raising awareness and recognition that is one way in which an increasingly more popular way for people to give philanthropically, and for us as local nonprofits to engage in a conversation with people who are increasingly giving philanthropically through donor advised funds, to remember that this is the moment to give and to inspire that. And I would also add that our intent is to honor and celebrate the generosity of people in our community, however they give, for whatever they choose to give to, knowing that we have to come together to solve big problems that cut across a whole lot of different places: food insecurity, lack of housing, mental health issues, the needs of children, our environment, the sustainability of our environment, our food systems. All of these are worthy causes. And if we can use this campaign to lift up philanthropic giving wherever people choose to be generous, and to celebrate that would be an incredible outcome of a campaign like this.
I'll just touch on, because Julia, you're talking, someone asked about building relationships, fundraising from individual donors, and how can nonprofit leaders find these donors to cultivate them, or is the goal that we will spearhead. And one of the challenges, honestly, with donor advised funds, many of them are anonymous. So we'll get a check-in that says, from Fidelity, anonymous, at anonymous. Some of the foundations I have a relationship with, and I'll call and say, like, "Hey, do you know who this is?" And they'll say, "No, we can't tell you." what I've seen as being, effective is when you can track it in your database, like we use soft credits and things so that I can go back and see like who of our donors is using donor advised funds. But we also know that donors, some of them have donor advised funds and give with cash, give with their donor advised funds. So they give in a variety of different ways. So you never know when you're doing your outreach, who in your database has a donor advised fund who might not have used it to give a grant to you. So, I suggest that you incorporate this into your outreach campaign. And we're going to be creating outreach materials for organizations so that they can share this campaign with their donors. With the hope that then the donors that they have who have donor advised funds, this will spark something in them. But I know the Community Foundation's website has a list of their donor advised funds. I think you have to go a few different layers to get down to it, so you can look at those lists. But it's hard to find. But once you start tracking it, you can start cultivating those individuals better. And I don't know if any of my colleagues have other suggestions.
I just wanted to add on to that too as well, Laura, the point that you made. I saw the recent statistics where that 88% of individuals with donor advised funds are using their capital outside of their DAF. So like you had mentioned, they're allocating cash or contributing money in other ways. So as you're doing outreach just to your general donors, you might not know who has a DAF that just hasn't been able to use it as effectively.
To say that this whole idea of incentivizing funding from DAFs, it doesn't replace all the relationship building work that needs to happen anyway. And I think that although it's true there are occasional kind of anonymous staff donations, I think the idea is to really be engaging with donors, and that this is just simply the vehicle through which they are giving the money. And I think what we're really trying to do is help release the potential of all these funds that people have already put aside for charitable donation, and really accelerate their use during this particular time. I think we're trying to kind of sort of open the floodgates essentially at a time of significant need.
And
there's a question here that from a nonprofit leader. If we get a gift from a DAFT holder, how do we let them know about matching? Do the nonprofit submit it, or does the donor submit it? Laura, do we need to figure that out, or is that something we know right now in terms of encouraging that donor to submit it for match?
So that's Elizabeth, how does it work? Because we're going to do something very similar.
Right. So for Half My DAF, it's the donor that's sending us their DAF receipts. I do have historically worked closely with individuals that have philanthropic advisors and are submitting DAF receipts on their behalf. So if there's a philanthropic advisor at a foundation and they're working closely with a client, I usually am in contact with them and they can send me their DAF forms on their behalf. Primarily, it would be great if the DAF holders are just using that Google form to submit their DAFs, but sometimes people just have really a large amount of grants that they're issuing out, and it's helpful if I can work alongside their support team.
So then in that case, it's a terrific way to steward these incredible DAFT donors that are giving to your organization. Contact them, thank them for their gift, acknowledge that you've noticed that they gave it from their DAFT, and let them know about this incredible opportunity to have that gift go even further by submitting it for a match, both locally in this campaign and nationally with Half My DAF campaign.
And I think just to clarify, somebody asked about who registers like the DAF donations, it's not the nonprofit that is applying for the match. We're encouraging donors to register their gifts that they're giving to a nonprofit for a match, whether it's through the Half My DAF national campaign or through this local campaign. So as Julia said, the job of the nonprofit is to is to inform the donor that since they've given from a DAF, they're eligible for these matching funds. I think I got that right.
Yes, that's correct. Thanks, Billy.
So people
There's-
are starting to trail off. Let's do closing remarks.
Great. Well, I just want to thank everybody for participating, for being here, for being willing to try something new, step outside of our comfort zone so that we can really raise up all organizations in this really challenging moment. I really want to thank Elizabeth for being here from Half My DAF after just going through all of the matching this weekend and getting them up on their website. So congratulations on this incredible campaign and the work that you're doing. And we would be so lucky if we could get anywhere close to the work that you're doing out there. I want to thank my colleague Julia Reisman from the Center for Ecotechnology, Billy Spitzer from the Hitchcock Center for helping to put this together and sharing your insights and wisdom. Kate from CISA being behind the scenes, Al, and all of the donors and advisors and nonprofits who are here. We don't have this all figured out. We're going to have some follow-up. Intentionally, we wanted your feedback today, and we will be responding to that and getting more information back out to everybody fairly quickly because we know Giving Tuesday is right around the corner. So anything else from Billy or Julia?
No, just thanks to everyone for being here, for great comments and questions. It's always a little weird to do this kind of thing on Zoom, but we don't get to see everyone. But I thought it was really great to hear, to read everyone's questions, and I feel really inspired that everyone's so engaged and thinking through this with us.
And if you might be so kind as to be a contributor to this pool and to unlock philanthropic generosity to the community, contact Laura or use that QR code that you see on the screen.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.